Hello and good morning. I want to make sure I got everything straight here. ah, this morning, oh, what a great day it is. We are going to be talking about gluten, what it is, a little bit about what it does, how it affects the body, and how you can go gluten free. So, I did get some great questions. I actually could only pick a few of them because these were multi questions that were kind of weighted. So the first question comes from Josh, which is good. And his question is, what is gluten and is it just in wheat? So I know when I first started on this gluten journey, I thought it was just in wheat too, but actually gluten is a protein and it is found in wheat, rye, and barley. Those are the main places where it's found. Now, you can find it in other grains, but those are the main grains that you'll find it in present day. Now, due to processing, you'll probably find it in a lot of other grains too. If you get food, say that comes from an area that also processes gluten-containing grains, then chances are the other grains that may not contain gluten will also have like a cross-contamination because of just the machines and the processes. Let's see, what else do you have here? You said, what is gluten and is it just in wheat? Okay, so the gluten protein is found in packaged goods. So you'll find it in packaged goods. You'll find it in processed meats like deli meats, condiments. I mean, you'd be surprised at where you would find gluten. Sometimes we think, hey, let me just go and get, the gluten-free flour and then I'm good. But no, you can find it in ketchup. You can find it in mustard. You can find it on envelopes. The glue that you seal envelopes in it also may contain gluten as well. So just think gluten is everywhere. All right, so great question. Thank you. Lori says, what is the difference between celiac and intolerance? Okay, so that's also a good question. A lot of times people think that either you have celiac or you're fine. And actually what celiac is an allergy to gluten. Okay, so to all things gluten, there's a severe allergy. What gluten does is it starts to poke holes. It's the protein that starts to poke holes in your gut lining or in your intestines. Okay. And because of this, what happens is you get something called leaky gut. So if you've ever heard of the term leaky gut, it just means little holes that are being poked into your intestines, which causes the nutrients that you take from your foods to be kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not to be absorbed. That's the word I'm looking for. So not to be absorbed in the manner that it should. Okay. So some of the symptoms that you may see when you have a gluten allergy will be autoimmune issues, brain fog, leaky gut, malnutrition. You'll see a lot of that, constipation, diarrhea, all of those types of symptoms, okay? And they can become very severe when you come in contact with gluten if you have celiac. Now, the difference between the celiac and intolerance is that the intolerance is just I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. The intolerance is you're not allergic to it, but you have many of the same symptoms as you would if you actually had full-blown celiac. Okay, so you're saying, okay, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is in celiac, you have an allergy to it. In intolerance, you are very sensitive to it. So although you may not necessarily have an allergy to it, you may not go into anaphylactic shock or anything like that, you will have a sensitivity to it that is severe. Okay. And it may be that you don't have an allergy to all things gluten. It could be you're just allergic to wheat. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but quite often, if you are allergic to wheat, but not necessarily gluten, it may not be the gluten that you may think that you're allergic to, it actually may be the sugars that are in the wheat. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. Okay, so the intolerance versus the celiac, meaning celiac people, 1% of the population has celiac. That means they cannot tolerate at all whatsoever any type of gluten, or else they will have a severe reaction. Intolerance means they will have a reaction, but it may not be life-threatening. But if they continue to eat in this pattern, the progression of it may become worse. So how do you test to see if you have either the intolerance or the celiac? Okay, so with the celiac, there is a test, which is follow up by a biopsy. Okay, and did I say biopsy? I'm so sorry. Anyway, you have a test, which is followed up by another test, and it will tell you if you actually have celiac. Okay, so it is definitive. It will say yay or nay whether you have celiac. The intolerance, you may test for celiac and it may test negative, but when you eat foods containing gluten, it'll still have similar effects, even though you've tested negative. Okay, so again, just understand that there is a difference between the two. 1 in 7 people have an intolerance to gluten, whereas 1% of the population has celiac. Okay, hope that answered your question there, Lori. Some of the other symptoms that you will see will be weight gain. When you have either celiac or an intolerance, you'll see more weight gain. Celiac, you may see more of a weight loss. Fatigue, brain fog, leaky gut, rash. If you've ever seen like on the maybe like the back of your arm, maybe even on your legs, you'll see like raised bumps. That can be indicative of a gluten sensitivity. So you really just want to watch your body to know best if you have a gluten sensitivity or not. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Either it's Tamara or Tamara. Please forgive me because I know I don't like it when people mispronounce my name. So I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Either Tamara or Tamara asks, I have started going gluten-free, but it is so frustrating. How do I go gluten-free and not want to step on my kid to reach for the donut? Oh my goodness, that's a great question because I understand what you mean. So first, let's talk about why people would go gluten-free. Okay, so you don't have celiac. You may not necessarily have an intolerance to gluten, but you may have a sensitivity to it. So in other words, you may feel a little bit of brain fog when you have that donut, or whether you have oatmeal or wheat or barley or any of those types of things. So you just kind of want to cut it out in general. You might see like a little bit of inflammation because gluten will cause inflammation. Okay. Your belly is poking out. You're not liking that. You just want to kind of nix all of that. So people go gluten-free for a variety of reasons. So with that being said, most people think, oh my goodness, in order to go gluten-free, I have to spend like $1 billion in order to go gluten-free. No, you don't. In fact, going gluten-free is much cheaper than you can possibly imagine. So some of the grains that you will no longer use will be wheat, rye, barley, some oats. But you can substitute those for, let's see, we have rice, okay, right here. Brown rice is much better for you than the white rice. But again, different topic for a different day, just more nutrients in the brown rice as opposed to the bleached white rice. You have other grains. Well, this really isn't a grain. It's actually a seed, but it's marketed as a grain. So quinoa, cute little nuts, and you can, little seeds, and you can actually make this into a cereal like you would oatmeal as well. Cassava flour. This is made, I always say this wrong, from the yucca. I think it's yucca. My sister-in-law always gets me. It's not yucca, it's yucca. Okay. So from the yucca plant, and it is gluten-free, grain-free, and nut-free. So a lot of the problem when you go gluten-free, if you have a nut allergy, is many of the grains may be mixed with nuts. Okay. When the actual pastry is made or whatever it is that's made, it may be mixed with nuts. Cassava flour is nut-free. And there are many recipes that you can use to make things containing cassava. Also, if you are paleo, people on a paleo eating style do not eat grains. So the rice and even quinoa, even though it's a seed, many don't eat quinoa. Cassava is a great substitute for that. Okay, and then you can go toward the conventional gluten-free flour blend. I will caution you if you have diabetes or any issues pertaining to your sugar levels, okay? A lot of the flours that are used in gluten-free flour mixes are high on the glycemic index. So this one has sweet brown rice, tapioca starch, more brown rice, arrowroot powder, sour gum flour, and xanthan gum, okay? And so a lot of those are high on the starch level. Other subs that you can use, we'll actually go toward the nuts before I get to more seeds. So my favorite, cashews. Absolutely love cashews. These you can grind these up and you can make them into a flour. And I show you all of these because you can grind all of these up and make them into a flour. Okay. So like the brown rice right here, you can use it. You can purchase it just like this. Okay. Pennies on the dollar, just like this. And then you can use a grinder, a coffee grinder. If you have a really good blender, you can use the blender too. So that will help to grind it into a flour for you. Okay. Cashews, you can make them into a sauce. You can make them into flour, great for pastries if you're looking for a delicious nut-based crust. I use cashews and I also use almonds. Okay. And I'm going to tell you a secret about these almonds in a minute. I use almonds to grind them up, and I'll put them and make it like an apple pie. You can make it like it'll almost be like a nut-based or graham cracker crust for the apple pie with these. And again, if you've got like a Vitamix or any strong blender, you can stick these right inside the blender. Call it a day. It'll be ground up like flour beautifully. If not, like I don't have one yet. That's going to be my gift to myself one day. I actually have a chopper. So I stick these in my chopper. And then after the chopper has blended them up pretty well, I'll put them in a coffee grinder. Coffee grinder costs what? 13 bucks. Coffee grinder. And then it grinds it up into fine flour. Other nuts you can use are walnuts. Now, walnuts are probably one of your more fatty nuts, but if you are vegan, these are great because it gives you a great source of a healthy fat. Now, like I said before, there's a lot of gluten in sauces. Okay, so you go and you get your teriyaki sauce or your barbecue sauce or even your tomato sauce, and there's gluten all in that. You're like, how do you put wheat in? Yeah, but you do to kind of thicken it up. So this is what I use for the base of a lot of my sauces. Okay, so it is coconut. Many people who have a nut allergy don't have a coconut allergy. Okay. So I'm speaking to you. If you have a coconut allergy, I'm so sorry. This is not going to help you at all. But this in a can. Okay. So not the coconut milk in a carton, but the coconut milk in a can. At the top of this, there's cream. And at the bottom of it, there's milk. So when you mix both of these together, the cream thickens up the milk. And so you have your thickening agent all wrapped into your sauce right here. And then you can add whatever seasonings you want, whatever, like if you want to add onions, peppers, whatever you want to do. I made a delicious curry-based sauce the other day. And it had peppers and, no, I'm sorry, not peppers. It had tomatoes and caramelized onions. And it had coconut milk as its base. Absolutely delicious. Not missing on flavor at all. In fact, you've now picked up the flavor and you've picked up some healthy fats and more nutrients too. All right, so we have coconut flour. Okay, so coconut flour, big bag. You can use that for pastries. You can use that for pancakes. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless. Waffles. You can make bread with that as well. Most people think, oh, I'm going gluten-free. I'll never be able to eat bread again. Not true. You can have delicious bread with almonds, with coconut, with just a variety of different flours. I make a muffin, and it's an almond-based muffin, and I'll put blueberries in it or cranberries or little bits of orange, whatever. And I actually like it better than most wheat-based muffins. Just saying. That recipe is actually in my book, Wife to Be, A Survivor's Guide. And they're just absolutely delicious. Okay, so seeds. Hemp hearts. These are the raw shelled hemp seeds. So this is the seed without all that extra stuff on the outside. Okay. I use that to put over my salads to add a little extra nutrition to the salad. So this is high in fiber, and everything that I've just shared with you is high in fiber. I'm not sure about the cassava. Let's see. Yep. Cassava is high in fiber too. Okay. So I'm looking, the average, I want to say, is about 11% in fiber. Well, maybe not the cashews, but about 11% in fiber for the nuts. But if you think about it, a lot of the wheat-based products are not very high in fiber. Like the fiber has to be added into it. So even if you are not going gluten-free, try substituting some of your recipes with these. Now, mind you, most of them are not a one-to-one. So you want to look up on Pinterest, whatever it is that you're substituting, and see what the actual measurement should be. But these are amazing when you really just want to add some more fiber into your diet to get things flowing the way that they should be. And if you are suffering from leaky gut, and the way you'll know you're suffering from leaky gut, you are hungry a lot more because your body, although you may be eating, you're not absorbing nutrients because they're being leaked out through your gut. Okay, that's a surefire way. Maybe if you have inflammation in your abdominal area, that's another key indicator that you may have leaky gut. A great thing to do is obviously, increase that fiber to get stuff moving, because sometimes that bigger belly is not necessarily inflammation, it's poop. And if it's poop, that means you got to get it flowing so that it comes out so that your belly can go down. Okay, I hope I answered your question on how you can go gluten-free without stepping on your child. I don't want you to step on your child. We want harmonious families. We're all about bringing the family back together, not going to jail. But I hope I answered those questions. And if you have any more questions about how to go gluten-free, please feel free to message me at cleangoodeats.com. Just click on the Contact Me tab right there. And if you're on Facebook, you can privately message me as well. I try to be accessible, or you can just post your question on Facebook. That I'll probably get it best on Facebook in my Clean Good Eats with Sakina B page. Okay, so I don't want time to run out before I answer a question that was actually posed last week. And I didn't get a chance to get to this question. So I want to make sure that I answer Latricia's question this week because it's a very important question. Okay, so she has, it's kind of like a 4 or 5 parter here, but She says, what's the newest information about vitamin D? Okay, so vitamin D, for those who may not understand, vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's not really a vitamin, but it's a hormone that our body produces naturally. And the way we produce it is with sunlight. So when we are out in the sunlight, the natural rays of the sunlight combine with our cholesterol, and our cholesterol that we naturally have converts melanin. Melanin is the pigmentation in your skin that causes you to be the color that you are. Okay. So it mixes with, it converts the melanin into vitamin D. Oh, there you go. So that's what vitamin D is. Now, a lot of people, in fact, 90% of adults in the US don't get enough vitamin D. So the latest information on that is saying that because of our indoor lifestyle, because of the fact that the moment we step outside, we douse ourselves in sunblock, we don't get enough vitamin D like we used to. Now, in years gone by, we would walk to the store. I know my mama would throw us outside and don't come back in until the sun goes down. So we'd be outside all day. Okay, no sunscreen, no any of that. Okay, we just be outside all day. And so our vitamin D levels at that time were higher. You know, we worked out in the garden. Well, I really didn't work out in the garden, but most people that didn't live in urban areas worked out in the garden. And because of that, they were able to get the natural rays of the sunlight. Okay, so that's one way to get vitamin D. Another way to get vitamin D is through food. Now, a lot of foods have since been fortified with vitamin D because we don't get enough outdoor time. And so since 90% of the US is deficient in vitamin D, they said, oh, well, let's fortify some of these foods. You know, you get your bread fortified, you have your dairy fortified, everything is just fortified. Your cereals now fortified with iron and vitamin D because we're not getting enough. But even though everything is still fortified, guess what? We're still not getting enough. So for those who have less melanin in their skin, meaning that they're more fair in their complexion, it's easier for them to produce vitamin D as opposed to someone who is darker, because when the sun hits someone who's lighter as opposed to someone who's darker, the sun can penetrate their skin faster. Okay. Whereas someone who has a darker complexion, it takes more sunlight in order for it to be penetrated so that the vitamin D can actually be created. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying go stand outside in the high noon with no sunblock on for like 3 hours. I'm not saying to do that. The average time needed in order to make sunlight effective would be about 10 minutes for someone who has a lot less melanin in their skin. For people who are darker, it'll probably take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes being outside without the sunblock to penetrate. Now, if you know that your skin is sensitive, my suggestion is supplements. Okay, although it's not as great as you getting the natural sunlight, just get food. When I say supplements, I'm talking first, get food that's fortified with it. And then if your levels are still low, then you want to go and get supplements. Now, speaking of supplements, there are two types of vitamin D. So there's D2 and D3. Our body, without getting into all the technical of what D2 is and what D3 is, our bodies convert D3 or absorb D3 much faster than D2. Unfortunately, most prescriptions are D2. Why that is, I'm still not sure, but most prescriptions are D2. Not saying that the body does not absorb D2. It's just it absorbs D3 with much more ease and about 500 times faster than it does D2. So I don't know why they prescribe D2. Okay, so let's see. That was your first question. Okay, so I answered the first and the second question. Do most people get enough? No, they don't. Next one. Does sunblock affect one's ability to make vitamin D? Actually, yes, it does, because it's blocking the sun's rays. So therefore, the sun cannot come in and do its due diligence in helping you make vitamin D, because it's being blocked. So if, just say you go outside, maybe for the first 10 minutes, depending on your skin complexion, 10 to 40 minutes, that you're outside, you don't wear the sunblock. Or again, if your skin is very sensitive, but you still want to get that sun, you want to get that vitamin D from the sun, put the sunblock on your face, put it on your hands, put it on your feet, but leave your extremities. Of course, you can't have clothing on your extremities, because that's not going to work. It's kind of like a sunblock, but you want to leave your extremities for that time frame and then put the sunblock on. Okay. And of course, you want to use as natural a sunblock as you possibly can, not one filled with all these chemicals, because then that brings on a whole host of other issues. All right, what's the relationship between LED lights and vitamin D? Okay, so LED lights, they'll tan you, but they're not giving you the vitamin D, because your body needs the rays from the sun. Even when you're sitting inside and you have a window and the sunlight is coming through the window, you're still not getting the direct rays of the sun to make vitamin D inside your body. You need to be outside. Okay. So with that being said, what time do you go? Can I go out at 10 o'clock? Well, 9 o'clock in the morning, or maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The best time to go is between 10 and 2, when the sun is at its peak, because that's when you know that the rays are hitting you directly, and they are most powerful at that time too. So please be careful, but they will be hitting you directly at that time. I heard, and please don't quote me on this, I could be wrong, but I heard that when you know the sun is most potent, and that your vitamin D levels can be absorbed. Well, your vitamin D, hush, I didn't say that. The sun is most potent, and you can create the most vitamin D. That's what I meant to say. You can create the most vitamin D when you look behind you and your shadow is shorter than you. Look that up. Tell me if I'm wrong, please. I want to know. Okay. So the next question is, how does the body use vitamin D? Okay, that is awesome. Well, first, I will say that the body uses vitamin D, which, like I said, is a hormone, not necessarily a vitamin, in a variety of ways. So we're talking, it affects your skeletal structure. So obviously strong bones, those commercials, milk does body good, give you strong bones. Okay, calcium, vitamin D gives you strong bones. It regulates your blood pressure, mood, increases your immunity. It fights off infectious diseases, and can help protect you from certain cancers. So not to mention, brain fog and brain function and all of those things. So that's how that's how important vitamin D really is. And I mean, just correlate that. Think about how right now you have people who are dealing with a lot of brain fog, fatigue, brittle bone syndrome, all of these issues that perhaps if they had more vitamin D, they wouldn't be dealing with these issues. Okay, because it's now more prevalent than ever. All right, so some of the symptoms that you can find when you are lacking in vitamin D, I actually had to write them down because there were just so many. So weakness, chronic fatigue, depression is a big one. If you notice, people who live in the northern hemisphere tend to have higher rates of depression than those who live closer to the equator or in tropical regions. That's why I say I was always born to live in paradise. Paradise. Okay, trouble sleeping, anxiety, weak or broken bones, weakened immune system, inflammation, swelling, osteoporosis, heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, autoimmune diseases, insomnia, arthritis, diabetes, asthma, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, psoriasis, fibromyalgia, and even autism. So these are some serious issues, all from a deficiency in vitamin D. So I hope that answered your question. If you have additional questions, more than that, please feel free to message me. I love to hear from you. If there's a topic that you want me to talk about, let me know because I enjoy talking about it. Also, I do have 30-minute and 50-minute sessions. They are free to you if you want to have a 30-minute channel next week. Bye-bye.